Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. So remember when I said last week that the turbulence on the charts was not going to go away anytime soon? Yeah, this week proved that in spades, because not only did Beyonce's Lemonade hit like a ship from heaven, Prince's tracks only picked up more traction in the Hot 100, and holy shit, somehow the charts got kind of amazing this week. And I mean that beyond just the new arrivals. This sort of shakeup I suspect will have longer lasting impacts than many might think, and ultimately I think for the better. Now I'll explain that when we get to our losers and dropouts, but let's start off with our top 10, where the chart turbulence definitely took more of a shape, except where I wanted it to. Let's be honest, I've never been more convinced than ever that the place at the top for Panda by Designer is short-lived than I am today. Because while it's got strong streaming and is picking up some airplay in YouTube, it was handily outsold this week and the numbers are not exceptional. The only reason that One Dance by Drake featuring Kyla and Wizkid didn't go to number 1 is the fact that it doesn't have YouTube yet, because it's handily beating Panda in every other category, even at number 2. So Drake, what's the holdup? Didn't you learn your lesson from last time with Hotline Bling? Or are you just that confident that the views boost will be enough? Because I'm sure as hell not. What this ultimately means that 7 Years by Lucas Graham was muscled back down to number 3 despite having bigger airplay than both songs, plus because it had slightly weaker sales and was outmatched on streaming. And yet I'd argue it's mostly stable against its competition for now. The first being the huge gains for Purple Rain by Prince. I'll talk more about the massive sales gains that every Prince song got this week in a bit later, but suffice to say that it was pushed up to number 4. And yet I wouldn't expect it to last that long, because it's not like the songs are picking up huge airplay to match, and deflation will push these songs out fairly quickly. Not quite the case for I Took a Pill and Ibiza by Mike Posner though, which actually held on to number 5 despite being outmatched on streaming. Solid sales and pretty decent streaming all things considered, and actually gained on YouTube, and it has good airplay. And it held steady as Work by Rihanna and Drake fell past it to number 6, losing across the board, especially with rough sales. Might pick up some positions when Prince loses out eventually, but that would be conditional on Beyonce not gaining any steam, and I'm not gonna make that bet. Now this takes us to Work From Home by Fifth Harmony and Ty Dolla $ign, which only went down to number 7 thanks to getting outsold. Because YouTube is massive, streaming is considerable, sales still are respectable, and it has airplay momentum, is simply just playing catch up at this point. Now this takes us to our second Prince top 10 entry, When Doves Cry at number 8, which again, it's here because of the gigantic sales and little else. It was just enough to shove back Pillow Talk by Zayn down to number 9, which is still picking up considerable airplay, just not enough to compensate for weakening stats in other categories. And this leads us to our final new top 10 entry, Formation by Beyonce. Guess it took the album to finally vault it up here, and while it is not my favorite song from Lemonade, I still don't have really much of a problem with it being here on huge sales and real streaming. Unlike the Prince songs, I would expect this to stick around for some time. But now on to the main event, our losers and dropouts. Let's make this clear, when you have a full album's worth of songs hit the Hot 100 all at once, the majority above 50, you're gonna trigger some major shifts, and the dropout list is the best place to start. Because while you had songs like Might Be by DJ Luke Nasty, Jimmy Choo by Fetty Wap, Little Bit of You by Chase Bryan, Drunk on Your Love by Brett Eldridge, and Handsome Myself by Selena Gomez, they were close to exiting anyways. Tracks like The Hills by The Weeknd, Down in the DM by Yo Gotti with the remix of Nicki Minaj, and Hello by Adele, they might have lasted a little longer, but now they're completely gone. They're not coming back. And that's considerable impact when you consider the huge list of losers this week, prematurely crippling momentum or forcing off songs that might have had more longevity. So while it's not surprising that, say, That Don't Sound Like You by Lee Brice fell down to 98, Piece by Piece by Kelly Clarkson slid down to 93, Famous and Father Stretch My Hands from Kanye West fell down to 83 and 82 respectively, You Should Be Here by Cole Swindle went down to 72, and Back to Sleep by Chris Brown went down to 70. There are plenty of other songs that might have their losses jump started. For example, even though I don't like Bryson Tiller, you can bet Don't going to 50 and Exchange falling to 44, that's ahead of schedule for him. Or take songs that are now very much in danger from sudden losses, like Jumpman by Drake and Future falling to 49, or Roses by the Chainsmokers featuring Roses going to 48, or Stitches by Shawn Mendes sliding down to 45, or Let It Go by James Bay skidding back to 42, or One Call Away by Charlie Puth going down to 46. And then consider the songs that still have a fair amount of life, but could have that downward slide escalate a little bit further than expected, like Cake by the Ocean by DNCE falling down to 24, or Sorry by Justin Bieber going to 31, or Two Phones by Kevin Gates falling down to 30 32. Or Middle by DJ Snake and Bipolar Sunshine falling down to 34. And then you have the cases where halting upward momentum, or at least consistency, like Never Forget You by MNEK and Zara Larsson falling down to 26. Or Low Life by Future and The Weeknd going down to 29. Or Close by Nick Jonas and Tove Lo at 36. And that's not counting the songs that will completely lose momentum at the lower reaches of the charts that will be blocked from getting any higher, like Somewhere on a Beach by Dierks Bentley at 51, or unfortunately The Sound of Silence by Disturbed at 59, or Cut It by OG Genasis and Young Dolph at 56, or Promise by Kid Ink and Fetty Wap sliding down to 77. And that's when we get to country, where it gets even worse. Yeah, Confession by Flora Georgia Line might be on its way out anyway at 81, but I Like the Sound of That by Rascal Flatts going to 78, or John Party's Head Over Boots going to 89. That's still not good. The harshest loss might have gone to Justin Bieber's Company though, plummeting down to 91 along with Acquainted by The Weeknd, to reside with non-starters like Moolah by Young Greatness at 97, or Light It Up by Major Lazer and Nyla at 88. The only two songs I can see having any real hope of recovering are Just Like Fire by Pink. It fell off its debut last week to 75, but it's generic enough to get a little bit of airplay, plus it's a Pink comeback, and Pop Style by Drake. In the latter case, only because views will be impacting the chart next week, not because the song is good or anything. Now, here's the thing. You would think that I'd be concerned with the biggest list of losses that I think I've ever covered in the history of Billboard Breakdown, but the truth is, we need to consider what's replacing them, which takes us to our gains and returning entries, and in both categories, I would easily stack them all up as better than the vast majority of what's getting pushed out. When the worst track of our returning entries is New Level by A$AP Ferg and Future at 90, that's not bad, and considering Record Year by Eric Church came back with it at 100, that's a major positive. It was one of my favorite songs of last year. But really, both gains and returning entries are just being owned by Prince, and it's time to explain why. Seeing comparison with other major celebrity deaths like David Bowie this year, or even going back a couple years from Michael Jackson, my theory is that many people took the opportunity to pick up Prince songs now, or albums that they might have forgotten. Most people, they already had a Michael Jackson compilation at some point, or a little bit too young to really get into Bowie's weirdness, but Prince had a run of killer, accessible singles that were very fondly remembered in retrospect, but they've just been forgotten, which is why the sales runs here are tremendous. So on that note, we got two returning entries that I personally consider lesser entries in Prince's classic singles, but still great songs regardless. The Razor Sharp synth pop of I Would Die For You at 39, and Raspberry Beret at 33, a song that I've always found a little bit perplexing thanks to that slightly weird strings arrangement. A great song, but not one of the classics. But then when we look at our gains, they're all Prince tracks. I've already talked about When Doves Cry and Purple Rain breaking into the top 10, but 1999 also jumped up to 27, and Let's Go Crazy jumped up to 25. And look, while I don't expect them to last very long, especially when they're currently at, I'm gonna enjoy these tracks landing with real impact for now. Maybe it'll inspire our current hitmakers to up their game a little bit to get some chart success, or for the audience to demand better. And on that note, let's talk about our new arrivals, and I have to say, I was genuinely worried when Beyonce broke the record for the number of new debuting songs in 1 week with 12, that I have to give one of them the worst of the week when really they're all great songs. Thankfully, it wasn't just Beyonce. Oh, and trigger warning, because we're starting off with number 94, Go Flex by Post Malone.
And I'm stone cold with the flex with my squad, and I'm smoking up a check. Man, I just wanna go flex, hold on my teeth and on my neck. And I'm stone cold with the flex with my squad, and I'm smoking up a check.
Okay, bad jokes aside, I have no idea who can groove to this, somehow even less catchy than White Iverson, and combining the breezy nothingness of a terrible white guy with acoustic guitar song with the lyrics of a trap banger. How is this remotely attractive or workable for anyone? At least Ray Shermer have energy. Post Malone's lifeless drone might fit the sparse acoustic guitar and limp trap percussion, but does it remotely fit a hook about flexing? Or Post Malone saying that he's coming with heat, which I don't remotely buy? And sure as hell doesn't make his whining about his girl, who I'm fairly certain he cheats on in his second verse, even close to workable. You say you're never switching up, Post Malone, but have you ever considered trying it? Cause this, it's god awful. The whitest approximation of a trap beat that I've heard in a while that alternates between being incompetent and insufferable. Next, number 84, Wake Up by Fetty Wap.
Like, can I get 5 more minutes? Shit, I ain't really tripping over school, let's get Wiz Khalifa high, yeah. Get meditated over medicated, get Wiz Khalifa high, yeah. Throw your caps in the air like you know you made it.
In my I the only one who finds the song, well, a little disappointing? Sure, I expected Fetty Wap to make some form of a weed anthem eventually, but this isn't much more of a song than Go Flex was, with the hook droning on about getting Wiz Khalifa high that has the shrill, piercing sound at the back of the hook that gets surprisingly grating against a very bare-bones piano melody. And sure, the verse is fine enough. Fetty Wap rapping about trying to be an inspiration for his son and wishing that science could catch up so he could get his vision repaired, but you know what? It's only one verse, and it feels oddly too aggressive to fit in with the production or the hook. And for Fetty Wap, even though I acknowledge that the hook has the childlike writing to fit in with the teen stoner anthem, this doesn't really interest me. And I gotta be honest, Fetty Wap has done a lot better. Sorry. Number 63, Forward by Beyonce featuring James Blake.
Forward, best foot first just in case. When we made our way till now, it's time to listen, it's time to fight.
Not a lot of time to say much here beyond welcoming James Blake to his first hit on the charts, and unfortunately probably his last. I wasn't particularly wild about this song when I covered Lemonade, even if I found the piano composition pretty, and James Blake delivering the sort of emotive performance that you would expect from him. Probably the closest in the mainstream to his vocals would be Sam Smith, but I've always found James Blake so much more emotive and passionate. Shame the track breaks into this pitch-shifted, echoing, choppy fragment at the end that I didn't exactly mind, but isn't really my thing either. More of an interlude than anything. I'm surprised to see it actually on the charts, but hey, I'll take it. Number 47, Love Drought by Beyonce.
9 times out of 10, I know you're trying, so I'm trying to be fair. And you're trying to be there and to care. And you're caught up in your permanent emotions. And all the loving I've been giving goes unnoticed, it's just floating in the air. Look at her.
Okay, so I didn't really have much time on the last song, so I'm gonna endeavor to keep most of these Beyonce reviews fairly short. Not because there are 12 of them and this episode is gonna go long regardless, but partially because I already reviewed this record at length over a week ago. So here we've got Love Drought, with Beyonce getting her FKA twigs on as she tries to be fair to Jay-Z and brings her own insecurities to the forefront as she tries to rebuild the relationship. And it really is a gorgeous song with a gleaming, plucky synth against the low, buzzy foundation before that theremin accent comes in for the hook, with just enough multi-tracking to really support Beyonce's breathier tone. Yeah, no complaints from me. This is a great song. It's absolutely beautiful. Next, number 43, Sandcastles by Beyonce.
Don't work out that way. Oh, babe. Every promise don't work out that way.
And here's the follow-up to that song, a piano ballad that is stunning in its simplicity and its raw beauty. It's a song about the wreckage of a marriage that Beyonce dearly wishes for her own pride she could cast aside, a promise that she swore she would never come back, and yet here she is, willing to give it one more chance. It's easily one of Beyonce's most gripping performances, particularly on the second verse, where you can tell the words are tearing at her voice. She's throwing her soul into this, and she completely kills this track vocally. Easily one of the best on the album, a personal favorite of mine, and Beyonce has a stripped-down piano ballad to give Adele some real serious competition. If she wants it, Sandcastles is it. Definitely check this out. Number 41, Daddy Lessons by Beyonce.
He told me not to cry. Oh, my daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said shoot. With his right hand on his rifle, he swore it on the Bible. My daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said shoot.
So what's the odds they start playing this on country stations? I'm not kidding here, because even though the song isn't a full traditional country ballad, it probably owes more of acoustic blues or maybe soul, especially with the horns, it's still more country than most of the garbage you'll hear on country radio these days. Looking at you, Sam Hunt. We gave Sturgill Simpson a pass, why not give Beyonce a chance? Especially when the writing is as sharp as it is, delving into the complicated relationship that she has with her father and how he drove her to be more of a fighter, warning her away from men like himself, which might as well include Jay-Z. So yeah, coupled with Beyonce giving another fearsome performance vocally that sounds plenty visceral, this song is awesome. That's more than just the country guy and me talking. And you know what? If country radio is looking for something on their summer lineup, I'd be fine seeing this here, because it's a pretty damn great song. Number 38, All Night by Beyonce. terms of the relationship narrative of Lemonade, many people would regard All Night as the finale track with Formation tacked on as a coda. I'm not quite sure I'd buy that. Formation shows Beyonce back on top in a way that All Night doesn't quite show in the same way. More of a ascending soulful swell to get to that conclusion, especially on her hook that's pushed higher through the horns, the sharp staccato guitar line, that bass line that's sampled from Outkast, and the lyrics that show Beyonce accepting her husband's moment of vulnerability as a chance to try again and make the relationship anew. It'll take time to truly repair things in full for sure, and Beyonce makes it very clear that it'll take time before she fully trusts him again, but this is a step towards polishing that flawed diamond of their relationship into something that's really beautiful. It's an absolutely gorgeous song, definitely a favorite. Check it out if you haven't, because it's great. Number 37, Pray You Catch Me by Beyonce.
Pray you catch me listening.
We now have the opening song of this album, but this is the track where Beyonce first gets the clue that something is terribly wrong. As the vocals layer against the very muted beat, the mournful pianos and strings, Beyonce hopes that she can push away her insecurity and her own doubts to pray that she captures him whispering the real truth, and yet she also prays that he'll see her listening, that he'll realize what he's done and confess, not lie to her again. And yet, as we've seen going through this album, that's not gonna happen. It's a powerful, low-key opening that manages to pull you in regardless. Might not be among my list of absolute favorites on this album, but still a great tune regardless. Number 35, Freedom by Beyonce featuring Kendrick Lamar.
Keep running, cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Now, if we're looking for a track that hits like an atom bomb of righteous rage that you never expect to see chart in today's day and age, it would be this one. Part anthem where Beyonce screams for the freedom of black women against sizzling organs, sharp drum work, and a collage of furious samples. The inclusion of Kendrick Lamar's incisive verse paints the song in both a populist and personal light, seeking more than just freedom from systemic racism, but the barrage of distrust and self-loathing that has fueled Beyonce's insecurity throughout this album. To quote her directly, she's gonna keep running cause a winner don't quit on themselves. It's anthemic, massive, layered against one of Just Blaze's career best beats. It's a titan of a song. Shame it's probably not gonna stick around, but I sincerely hope it does cause it is awesome. Number 28, Don't Hurt Yourself by Beyonce featuring Jack White. And here's another one that's probably not gonna stick around for long. Well, guys, it's a blues rock song that features Jack White's harsh tones in the chorus of the organ flutters mirrored by the guitars before the bass gurgles beneath the symphonic swell. Also, nice to see you back in the Hot 100, Jack White. It's been a while. And it's easily one of Beyonce's most furious songs. The moment where she pitches restraint out the window and tears into Jay-Z with the righteous fury of a woman's scorn, showing just how easy it would be for her to move on and throw him aside. After all, everything he does to her reflects on him as well. You know, with Beyonce delivering the sort of furious and raw performance howling through the grimy filter of which I didn't know she was capable of, it's easily one of the biggest standouts from Lemonade and easily one of my favorites. Absolutely awesome, killer song. So happy Beyonce is back with stuff like this. Number 18, 6 Inch by Beyonce featuring The Weeknd.
She works for the money, she works for the money from the start to the finish. And she worth every dollar, she worth every dollar, yeah, she worth every minute.
And yet, even with Jack White and Kendrick Lamar, there's a part of me that might just love this song just as much, if not a little more. And unlike those two, it's got The Weeknd and a bombastic sound that might have a chance in hell of lasting on the charts. Granted, The Weeknd's presence is pretty perfunctory here. He handles an opening verse opening up the track for Beyonce as pretty much a hype man before Beyonce anchors the symphonic bombast of the track. It's the odd horn sample behind the hook even before the trap beat kicks into gear. It's catchy as hell, I gotta be honest there. And yet, even then it's gonna switch into an interpolation of an Animal Collective sample on the bridge that fits ridiculously well in supporting the razor-sharp anthem, balancing the hard grind of the opulence that gives the song impressive swell and real weight behind it as a work anthem. I can't recommend this highly enough, and I sincerely hope it sticks around because it is amazingly good. Number 13, Hold Up by Beyonce.
Slow down, they don't love you like I love you. Back up, they don't love you like I love you.
step down, they don't love you like I love you. Can't you see there's no other man above you? What a wicked way to treat the girl that loves you. Oh love, they don't love you like I love you. Oh down, they don't love you like I love you.
Okay, I'm not surprised this charted as high as it did, but I do wish I liked this song a little bit better. Mostly while the bubbly, tropical vibe has a certain charm to it, especially in the guitars, minus that air horn of course, I never liked that sound. The lyrics feel like a bit of a patchwork. The hook is an interpolation of the Yeah Yeah Yeah's maps, the outro pulls from Soulja Boy of all people, and the verses are riding a line of instability in and of themselves, as Beyonce second guesses herself and races through Jay-Z's phone, trying to find answers behind the opulent mask and the fact that he keeps lying. She knows it's gonna look jealous or crazy, but she would prefer to find the truth and damn the impression instead of getting walked all over. And when she finds that truth, the fact that she never quite explodes in the song heightens that tension all the further. And yet, while I appreciate the balancing act this song achieves, I'm sorry, I just can't get past that air horn and the Soulja Boy lyrical snippet. I mean, Beyonce, why him? They just drive me completely out of the song. It's a good song, but it should have been a great one. Number 11, Sorry by Beyonce. I'll admit, I was a little bit surprised to see this as the second highest charting song after Formation. Sure, it's got the most mainstream accessible sound with the bright buzzy synths and the trap beat, plus containing that Becky with the good hairline that made people lose their minds, but it doesn't quite have the bombast that I loved about most of this album. Now don't get me wrong, it's still a great song, especially with Beyonce's performance balancing between Kiss Off and the real sadness beneath the surface as she takes off, especially on the final verse where she leaves the note and leaves it blue, but I wouldn't quite call this my favorite, especially in that clanking outro that seems to dissipate with a bit of a chintzy synth line. Again, still a great song, but not quite in the upper tier of Beyonce songs coming from that album. At least for me. And finally, number 10, Formation by Beyonce. Formation has been bubbling beneath the Hot 100 for months now, and it's finally got the swell it needed to smash all the way to the top at number 10, and I'll admit, it's really not my favorite from this album. Beyonce's ratchet side doesn't really do it for me, but it's probably the case where she sticks the landing the most, certainly better than the sloppiness of 7-Eleven, playing off an oddly hollow, springy synth until the horns add in more actual melody. And the lyrics, well, they pretty much do what you would expect from a gender-flipped trap anthem. Floss, rep for your hometown, emphasize dominant sexuality, and emphasize independence specifically. In other words, it's Beyonce doing what Beyonce does best. And even though I know it's defiantly not for me, I can still respect what it's trying to do, and it does execute pretty well. If only because the lyrics run the line of ridiculous and kind of awesome regardless. I just kind of dig some of the how out there they are. Again, it's not a favorite of mine, but it's still pretty good. I'll take it most days. So that was this week, and wow, the worst is easy. Go Flex by Post Malone runs away with it, with Wake Up by Fetty Wap snagging dishonorable mention. But the best, well, I can't have a 6-way tie, but I will opt for a few ties here, with the first at the top being between 6 Inch featuring The Weeknd and Freedom featuring Kendrick Lamar, with the honorable mention tie between Don't Hurt Yourself featuring Jack White and Sandcastles. That song just really gets to me. Okay, even though I get the sinking feeling that Drake is gonna smash a whole chunk of these songs away, can we please keep most of these around for next week, because the charts are gonna be a lot more awesome with Beyonce than more interchangeable Drake tracks that were mediocre at best. But till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.